Hello, my name's Anthony Warner. I'm a food writer and a chef, and I think the reason why I'm so interested in doing these sort of courses and events is because a lot of my writing is about misinformation in the world of food. It's kind of the thing that I'm known for, is sort of debunking fad diets and working a lot with dietitians and nutritionists actually to sort of using them to help me get good information about food and health across. And these sort of courses really give us an opportunity to debunk those sort of food myths and get good information out there in front of people and in real time.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Lowe. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm really interested in doing this because the evidence-based nutrition and how it affects our health is obviously key to my work, and by combining this with Anthony's work with recipe development, it means that actually we can get real behaviour change for people, because they actually have the ideas of what they can go and do next to be able to make their diets more healthy in a really easy format.
The idea, and we had this idea quite a long time ago, was always to combine cooking, like good cooking, good sort of advice on how to help people cook and make food taste better, with sort of high quality evidence-based nutrition advice. Because I mean, we see, and we've worked on this for quite a long time, we see there's sort of misinformation everywhere about food and health, and the best way to fight back against misinformation is often to get good information out there into the world. And from my point of view, it's all very well telling people about what healthy food looks like, but unless they eat it and they enjoy it, then it's never actually information never translates into anything. So, and also from a chef's point of view, I'm quite good at cooking, but I'm not always confident I'm going to be giving the best person to talk to about nutritional information. So for me, I sort of, it's combining those two things, I think, that I think is the important thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think from my side, I can give all the nutrition information, I can give some practical tips and advice, but I certainly can't cook or create recipes to be able to back those up. So that is where Anthony comes in.
Yeah. I should be defending you and saying, no, you're an excellent cook.
No,
well,
perfect.
We've had some experience working together. I mean, yeah, and it's also debunking some of those myths, because I think you see it a lot in your clinical work, and I see it a lot in my writing work, but also just generally in the working in the world of food and reading a lot about food. You see so much like misinformation out there, which is accepted as fact by a lot of people and communicated very confidently by a lot of people. It's one thing. I spent a lot of my career, and I know you do yours as well, actually. Looking at that, fighting back and telling people, no, this is bad information. But unless there's sources of good information out there, there's kind of no point in just sort of debunking things all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. The more information that we can give people that's actually evidence-based and real, as opposed to just made up. Well, I think I quite often see people having cut out whole food groups, because they're either trying to cut sugar out of their diet, and so they end up cutting all carbohydrates out of their diet, because all carbohydrates are digested and broken down into glucose. And obviously when people do that, they're also cutting fibre out of their diet, which then has an impact on their gut health. So that's a big one that I see quite often, along with either completely cutting out fats from their diet, or having read something else that means that they're suddenly putting butter into their coffees. So we've got both extremes on those, and obviously both extremes of anything are not good.
Has that changed over time? Like there's been a shift, because it used to be just all about fat, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's more. Definitely, I see more in clinic the worry more around sugar now rather than about fat, but more to the fact that people don't worry about fat anymore at all, and so they are then potentially putting more saturated fats back into their diet whilst thinking that that's an okay thing to do. Yeah. And obviously, in certain population groups, I see cutting lots of food groups. Protein is always the sort of heralded absolutely find one that nobody seems to worry about too much.
Do you agree with that?
No, not really. No, it's
nothing wrong with protein. Right?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with protein, but as protein, only protein, yes, I do not think that that's a good way forward.
Yeah. It's very unusual for people not to be having enough protein.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Really
Most people will have enough protein in their diet unless actually they've had bariatric surgery, right. And then we have to really concentrate on protein. But even bariatric surgery is surrounded with myths and misconceptions that go around on Facebook groups. So I have patients coming and just basically having protein shakes all the time and then wondering why they've got constipation because they're not having any carbohydrates. So in all areas there are these myths and misconceptions.
I think the sort of general thing that I see, I've obviously come from a slightly different perspective, but I observe the world of food and the information about food and health it's just generally an oversimplification. People want a simple, like, what do I do to be healthy? And unfortunately that's not always.
No.
If you're looking from an evidence-based perspective, the sort of work that you do, there's not a simple solution. There's not like do this one thing. We're not going to be selling people like do this one thing to one simple tip that the doctors don't want you to know. There's none of that. That sort of thing is almost always. Well, it's not almost always false. I think in diet and health, it is always false. People want a simple solution, but the answer is probably improving your diet generally and getting more balance and learning to cook some new dishes and that sort of thing. So people are after simple solutions to complex problems, and that's always a bit of that's always a red flag if people are selling you simple solutions.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll let you go with that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think if you think about the length of time that we're at work, it's really important to have this information given to people from their workplaces, but also that the practical side comes from the workplaces as well. So being able to encourage the healthy eating in the workplace by perhaps providing the food or making available the food that is going to help people improve their diets. I think in terms of companies, probably all companies need this, but certainly ones where people are in very high stress, very busy jobs where they don't actually have time or potentially money sort of outside of work to be able to access individual sort of needs in terms of a dietitian or a chef. Most people do not have access to that.
Yeah, it's often time and convenience, isn't it? So people who are working long hours or stressful jobs, it's that sort of, and often in workplaces perhaps where they don't have sort of access to sort of really good facilities, cooking lots of healthy food. Plenty of workplaces where that's not possible. Increasing number of people working from home, and people will gravitate perhaps sometimes towards sort of less healthy eating habits when they're eating at home. So it's that sort of thing. It's the convenience and the that sort of there's price as well sometimes as well. The things that often push people towards less healthy eating habits when they're working hard and they're time constrained. But that sounds like there's nothing you can do from a cooking point of view. But a lot of the stuff we do is really, really simple tips, just how people can make small changes to improve their diet and have food that they can sort of pre-prepare, or stuff that's just really simple to prepare, or even a lot of the time, and the other chefs and dietitians probably won't sort of go this path. It's which convenience options are better, which readily available convenience foods that are simple to reheat and eat are perhaps the better choices that people should be making.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know that a healthy lifestyle, which includes a healthy balanced diet, can lead to less sickness absence from work. It leads to improved mood, improved efficiency, and therefore improved performance at work. For example, I see in clinic fairly often, people will get to that kind of mid-afternoon slump because they've skipped breakfast in the morning because they haven't had time. They get to work, they might eat lunch probably at their desk, and then but they'll eat a lot at lunch, and it will all be generally nutrient poor foods, and then at around about 4 p.m. they'll have a real energy slump in their day. Whereas we know that actually we can kind of consistently give people energy throughout the day as our bodies need to be able to work properly, and our brains can function better. And hydration is really important in that as well. So we do touch upon hydration in these sessions as well, and just about being well hydrated so that you can actually think clearly and you don't get into that sort of lethargy that happens otherwise if you tend to get dehydrated.
Yeah, I think a lot of advice about sort of a healthier lifestyle advice tends to be a little bit inaccessible for a lot of people. It might be, do this sort of, I know you quite like meditation and yoga, but doing those sort of things. I'm not going to be doing meditation and yoga any sort of time. People say, oh, you should be exercising 40 minutes every day, or doing all these things. A lot of people are so far away from that, they're like, oh god, no. But we all have to eat every day.
Yeah.
And if we can just make some small changes to the way we eat and some of the foods we make, and a little bit of cooking maybe as well, then you can actually, that's sort of accessible for everybody.
Yeah.
So in order to have, if you want to sort of implement for employees changes that are actually going to be taken up and are going to engage with people and everybody, not just the few who are really interested in making dramatic lifestyle transformations, then I think food's a really good place to come.
Yeah.
There are obviously huge benefits to eating a better quality diet, but it, as I said before, it is complex. You can't just say to someone, if you cut this food out, you're suddenly going to be transform your health. People have to adopt sort of a number of different changes and to have a better understanding of what constitutes a healthy diet, which is not always what we're told, not always what we think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those small sustainable changes are really important, because anything where you dramatically go, right, from tomorrow my entire diet is going to be completely different from what it is today, generally those sorts of changes aren't going to be sustainable over time. You have to make little changes over time, step by step.
I think that's what, one of the things that I think we're both passionate about in terms of transforming the way people eat is to not say to people, okay, you've got to cook everything from scratch. You've got to, every meal you have has got to be cooked from scratch using fresh ingredients. You should have this perfect breakfast and style it and put it in a bowl with flower petals. And we're not about that at all. There are convenience options which can make cooking easier for people. There are convenience foods, ready to eat convenience foods you can buy, which are not too bad if that's the situation you're in. And directing people to sort of slightly better choices, small transformations, and those are a lot of the tips that we do as cooking, and not just here's a whole dish from start to finish made from scratch ingredients. It's like, here's a dish that we can make and combine with this convenience product and make a meal in a very short time or very short preparation time, or have a meal on the table in 10 minutes sometimes, or and some stuff that you might do sort of batch cooking and that sort of, it's about those sort of changes, not just like your lifestyle is terrible and you need to completely transform it, because people's lifestyle is what's suitable for them now, and you need to, the stuff we do it has to fit into people's lifestyles. I mean, my background is partly in food writing, but partly developing products for big retailers, big brands, and a lot of the brands I used to work on were brands which are in most households in the UK. So we met a lot of consumers in UK households and really understood how people cook and how people interact with food. I think that's a really valuable experience. A restaurant chef might come in, I did work in restaurants, but someone who's only got restaurant experience might come in and show you some fantastic cooking tips and some fantastic dishes, but it's kind of not really realistic for most people to build into their lives. So we work really hard to create, using the information about health, nutrition and diet to create dishes, but also information about how people actually cook and what's accessible and what's possible for them. And it's combining all those things, I think, gives information and recipes and that actually do, people do actually adopt into their lives. Following up with looking at the way people, how many of these hints and tips people adopt, and because of our sort of collective knowledge, I think we have quite a high hit rate on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, even from a personal perspective, I've got 2 small children, I work, I do not have time to even buy the ingredients for a recipe that contains 25 ingredients. I cannot do that on a daily basis. I would probably self-combust. So I just need things that are really quick and easy, and I know that a lot of people are in the same situation. I know working clinically with people, a lot of people will say that they'll go and get a takeaway because it's quicker than cooking. Well, actually, if you know what to do and if you know how to cook, even if it's not cooking from scratch, that's not what you have to be doing. There's a lot of convenience foods that are good and that are healthy. It's not, I think it's very much branded around that everybody must cook from scratch and this is the healthiest way forward. Well, that is only the healthiest way forward if in the meantime you're not completely losing all of your mental health because you're trying so hard to be perfect in everything. So I think using those convenience foods really has a place in being able to cook those quick and easy healthy dishes.
Yeah, I think you have a background in psychology as well, which I think is I always think that's one of the a lot of my writing's about food psychology and how why we make eating decisions and why we eat the way we do. And I think that's a really important thing to bring in, because your knowledge of behaviour change will tell you that sometimes some of the information you see about healthy eating is just making people feel guilty. It's just going, you've been a terrible person and you're eating a terrible diet and you must transform your life or you're going to die in the next year. Not even if it's true, which is almost certainly isn't. It's not the best way to encourage people to change their behaviour.
No, absolutely. And again, just giving people information, it can just make people feel guilty that they're not following that information, because a lot of people know that they should be getting at least 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. A lot of people know that, but it's just how do they then practically do that? How do you practically make your children have 5 portions of fruit and veg a day, or whatever it is? Actually it's that taking it away from being something that is never going to be achieved. I think that's the thing, isn't it? When you see this stuff and you go, well, my diet's over here and this is healthy eating, to get from here to here is massive, and so then you have to break it down to okay, well, let's just go a step further and see if we can get there.
It's kind of at the heart of what we're trying to do. Is information is one thing. It's important. Information and good evidence-based scientific information is incredibly powerful, but information does not create behaviour change on its own, and it's bringing in the sort of practical elements and getting people to see food and taste food and see how easy it is to create some of these sort of dishes. I think that's a step beyond that, which helps people get into behaviour change. People will never eat food they don't sustainably. People will never eat food they don't enjoy.
They don't like.
They have to enjoy it, and it has to be convenient enough, and it has to be at the right cost. And bring those things together with information about healthy eating, I think you have something quite powerful.
Yeah.